Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to Collector's Guide. Frankly, I'm a little bit embarrassed. Most of us recognize the name Edward Higgins White II in connection with a watch. He had nothing but dangerous jobs and he died young, but in his 36 years, he achieved the extraordinary. West Point graduate, aeronautical engineer, Air Force fighter pilot, military test pilot, and an astronaut on top of all that. He's so much more than the nickname's sake of a watch. Today, we discuss the Omega Speedmaster caliber 321, not in lieu of, but in addition to, the legacy of Ed. This is the Collector's Take. The story of our hero, well, the watch at least, begins in 1942 when chronograph specialist LaMagna teamed up with Omega to create the now legendary caliber 321. Fast forward to 1957 and it finds itself in the first Speedmaster, CK2915. It wasn't built with aerospace in mind, it was envisioned as a watch for speed demons at racetracks. 2 years later, the second generation, CK2998, which would, in 1962, become the first Omega in space, courtesy of Wally. Fast forward to 1965, and our real hero, Ed White, becomes the first American to spacewalk in June. He does so with a reference 105003 pre-moon Speedmaster on his wrist, and a legend is born. In 1968, the pre-moon is phased out, and we won't see caliber 321 again until its revival in glory for the Apollo 11 50th anniversary in 2019, but it didn't become available in steel or historical reedition until 2021, when the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch caliber 321 bowed to universal acclaim. This is a timepiece that is steeped in history, and with the exception of a few detail refinements to fit and finish, it's about as true a re-edition watch as has ever been created. In a word, authentic. This isn't a real Speedmaster 105003, but blink and you could miss the differences. Minimally beveled, squared off lugs, no crown guards, a 39.7mm case. This watch, right down to its simulated vintage flat link bracelet, looks the part. Is that a Omega 139 with 516 end links on your wrist? It may as well be. This thing is a body double to its historic precedent. It's appealing, approachable, and authentic, wearable by him and her because of the smaller pre-moon case. Flip it all over and it takes you right back to 1965 with caliber 321. If there's only one element that jolts you out of your historical stupor, it's going to be the clasp itself, which, in spite of a vintage Omega-style logo, is thick-gauged modern stamped steel with a twin-trigger release. Children, avert your eyes. I don't know the definition of chronography, but I know it when I see it. This is for mature audiences only. This caliber 321 is spectacular. It's everything the original was, plus a higher degree of finish and detail. A giant, slow-beating balance that's almost the radius of the movement, a Breguet overcoil, fired blue and shaped by hand, bevels as good as anything from the likes of JLC, Zenith, or even Vacheron. This is the real deal, column wheel, lateral clutch, and all, with a beautiful break between violet pivot jewels, silvered steel, rose gold gilded brass, and, I should mention, golden wheels, every single one of them internally beveled. And by the way, this movement, in more highly finished form, though not much, has also served in Patek Philippe, Vacheron, Roger Dubuis, Breguet, and others. It is both high horology and sky-high horology at the same time. Take a look at the dial side. This is a luxury watch in the modern sense. First, take note of the ceramic bezel. And this one, in spite of the domed sapphire, is in fact a sapphire sandwich, scratch resistant on both sides. It's both a modern watch and perhaps the ultimate historical re-edition, possibly the best by any brand ever. This thing comes in a steamer trunk of a box. Honestly, this would have been a hell of a payload in the Apollo era. Spectacular in its size, a clamshell opens to reveal an inner box with a lovely textile-style wrap and metal fixing hardware. By the way, that clamshell box, if you look down in its corner, SP, Special Edition, this one gives up the game early. Check out the inner box. We have that manhole cover like Speedmaster medallion. Open up the small port to the left, there's a loop. You'll put it to good use enjoying this watch, and take a look at the detail. The loop features its own tachymeter. Silly, fatuous, but fun. Open up the compartment in the back of the box, and now you have a strap tool, and an extraordinarily good one, several spare spring bars, a NATO-style strap, and for astronauts and their spacesuits, a full Velcro strap for special duty. Take a look under the box. Literature. The large book details the key moments in the heritage of the moon watch. We have an enormous guide to changing straps, probably everything you'll ever need to know. We have a caliber 321 specific booklet that tells you everything about the genesis of this movement, its predecessors and its successors. Also, an extraordinary revelation, these caliber 321 Speedmasters are made in a special studio at Omega in Vienna, whereas almost all Omegas are made by machines. These 321s are built on a one watchmaker basis. Ed would be proud. Take another look. Underneath, we have a sort of simulated suede. It's a little wallet featuring the famous Omega pictograms card. How many of these can you identify without cheating, by the way? We have the international warranty card and a customer service guide for wherever you may need to service your Speedmaster. There's a big red book, and it tells you how to operate the watch, but frankly, a manual wind chronograph, guys, you're advanced. You've got the PhD. You don't need that. Frankly, this watch fits beautifully. First, it's 48 millimeters lug to lug, and it's under 40 millimeters in diameter. I recommend it for a 14 centimeter circumference wrist or larger. By the way, that beefy wrist, as usual, is Sean's. Well, first of all, space fans. This is a genuine recreation of an article of space memorabilia that lives in legend. It's as close as you can get to the original without owning the original. If you want something that is wonderfully emblematic of the golden era of spaceflight, wear this on your wrist full time and never forget. Are you vintage averse? Are you afraid of the hornet's nests of Franken watches and parts specials, of overrepresented eBay sales with crazy jargon and tall tales? Or maybe you just don't want to deal with the histrionics of keeping an old watch running, including a lack of water resistance and delicacy. Guess what? This one's for you. You'll never have to pretend again that damage is actually beautiful patina. Movement snobs. You guys haven't been into Speedmasters for a long time, but we finally have something approaching Breguet levels of finish in an Omega. Step forward. Finally, are you the Omega man? You know what I mean. Are you that guy who has a full Omega collection, maybe even an only Omega collection? Well, this is your watch, possibly the crown jewel of your collection. The Rolex Daytona and the Omega Speedmaster are contemporaries. Both launched in the late 50s or early 60s. Both were initially envisioned as sports chronographs for high-speed motorsports enthusiasts. The Rolex, over time, has stayed true to its origins, while the Speedmaster has morphed into more of an aerospace watch. But they remain very close in spec. The Rolex 40mm, the Omega 39.7, both stainless steel. The Rolex, $15,100, the Omega, $15,400. If you prefer getting wet and you like automatic winding, you might lean toward the Rolex, whereas if perhaps you favor the aerospace and space legend of the Omega, movement finish and display casebacks, you might lean towards the watch from BN. Or if you want another period peer, the Breitling Navitimer Reference 806 1959 re-edition from 2019. A limited edition and very true to history, it checks all the boxes. Stainless steel, 40.9mm, plexiglass crystal, manual wind. Used, these go for $8,000 to $9,000 all day long. Or you can own something even more authentic than the new Ed White, the old Ed White. If you go out and look for a 105003 on Chrono 24, you're going to find them available with bracelet for between $20,000 and $30,000. Sometimes you just can't beat the real thing. The world has many Joes and very few pros, but every once in a while we find a way to buy our way into the life of a legend. You can own Chris Froome's Tour de France winning bicycle, you can buy Michael Jordan's sneakers, and if you've got the checkbook, you can even own the Le Mans winning Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. I will never be an astronaut, and frankly, if you're watching this, neither will you. But thanks to Omega, we have a way to slip the surly bonds of Earth, and that is the collector's take.